The village that we're in right now is the village of Deerford. It's not on the critical path of the story. We wanted to make sure that the backers did not have any of their story moments spoiled, so this whole area is entirely optional side content for them to go through. This is the Dracogen Inn. It's one of our backer inns during the Kickstarter campaign. A lot of our backers backed for high dollar amounts to get custom content into the game. And behind the bar is Dengler, named for our backer, Stephen Dengler. And we're going to talk to him about renting an inn, or renting a room at the inn, sorry. In the Infinity Engine games, it wasn't very compelling to try to rent a room at most of the inns because there wasn't much difference between resting at an inn versus resting in the wilderness, which you could often do for free. If you rest at an inn in Pillars of Eternity, you can choose to rent a very nice, expensive room and you will get a long-term buff. That long-term buff will last until the next time you rest. So for example, if you rest at the Dragon's Lair, you can get +2 to Might, Constitution, and Intellect, and that will last until the next time you rest. It encourages the players to use the inn. It also encourages players not to try to rest spam, because as soon as you rest, you'll lose that bonus. You can also use inns to hire adventurers. If you do not like the 8 companions that we are making for the game, that are full Obsidian companions with their own personalities and storylines, you can make your own party if you want to. You just have to have the money. You go to any place that has an adventurer's hall and you can recruit, which is to say you can make a new character. However, since we already have a party of 5 characters, we're just going to head out and find a quest to do. So down here we have a pig farmer named Rumbald. And Rumbald is very upset because an ogre keeps sneaking into the town and stealing the pigs. People haven't been able to stop the ogre, and they're unwilling to go take care of the ogre because, in addition to being very, very powerful, ogres are very smart in this setting. So no one really wants to go handle him, so he asks you to go do it for him. Ogres, the only thing that keeps them really from killing each other is that, or I'm sorry, from killing all the civilized folks near them, is that they don't organize very well. They tend to be extremely paranoid and extremely aggressive with each other. Typically, among ogre kind, only ogre matrons can keep them in line. The female ogres are bigger and stronger than the males and have a lot better tempers. But often ogres get tired of dealing with ogre matrons, so they head off on their own into the wilderness and cause trouble for civilized areas like Deerford. This village of Deerford is built on top of old castle ruins. You can see some of the locals have built into those ruins, including the ruined tower there. And of course, since we are relying on a pedigree that has a lot of dungeon diving, there is a ruined dungeon underneath the city that you can explore in the backer beta.
First question, just honestly, how many people have said, this looks like the way I remember Baldur's Gate looks like?
A lot of people, which is very good, and it makes us very happy because we've really set out to make a game that captures the spirit of the traditional games in terms of how the interface looks, the angle, all the environments, and how they're rendered. So we're really happy that people have responded well to the stuff that we showed at E3 and also the stuff that's on the floor right now. So lots and lots of people, and that makes us very happy.
And still, did you just twitch it a little bit? You turn it up a little bit? It looks like you remember it, but if you go back and actually play the old games, it doesn't look like the way it's in your brain, but you updated it just like that.
Yeah, obviously it looks kind of like an ultra high-res version, and then you go back and you're like, whoa, this is 640 by 480, this is much lower res. But I think the important thing is, obviously, it doesn't look literally exactly the same, but the important thing is to capture the spirit of it, and that's I think that's what people want, is the feeling of going back to that style of game.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about scope. You're showing here a side quest, just to avoid spoilers, and can you just tell us how big it's going to be? Any idea how many hours are going to go into that?
I really am. Ever since Icewind Dale: Heart of Winter, I'm very skeptical about giving gameplay length estimates. But we can say, in terms of the number of maps, if you compare Icewind Dale 1, Icewind Dale 1 had about 80 or so maps. Baldur's Gate 2 had about 275 maps. Our game has about 150 maps. So it should be a pretty big game. It should feel like it's an appropriate length for an Infinity Engine style game.
Okay. Was there anything about the traditional games that you said, no, we can't do that, no one's going to accept that anymore, or can we find anything that you showed us? There's a mode to switch off all the kind of extras that make it easier just to find stuff and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we did want to make sure that the combat HUDs were easier to read. So in here you can see that all the characters in combat have the little HUDs over their, not over their portraits, over their actual character models. Previously, you only had tooltips in the Baldur's Gate games, but we wanted to make that stuff a little more upfront and center. Also, we have the little, in those bars, we have the timers that tick down that shows when the next action is taking place. Those are things that we said, like, well, if we wanted to be purely traditional, we would leave those out because they weren't in the old games, but it makes it so much easier to understand what's going on by having them. So, of course, if you turn on expert mode, those things go away. Similarly, we wanted to make the interface more compact down on the bottom, which is, I guess, more similar to Icewind Dale 2. Some people don't like that style of interface, but it is much more compact, and it's much easier to move your mouse around in. We've just made choices like that. We also wanted to have the game system be much more consistent in the information it presented to the player. Instead of having 2-hit armor class 0 and saving throws, we have a unified attack and defense system. So once you've learned how one attack works, you've kind of learned how all attacks work. So it's just stuff like that, where we didn't want to make the game be dumbed down or really simpler. We just wanted to be very straightforward and clear with the player so that they could spend their time playing the game as opposed to just learning a bunch of special mechanics that only come up once in a while.
Okay, and just to finish it up, let's talk about player feedback. You're just starting now with the full beta for the backers, but you have been in contact with all your backers and lots of stuff went into it. Can you pick out something that was really most important for them that you actually put in?
Well, the expert mode, I would say, is probably the most important thing overall, because I feel like the backers who are likely to dislike one ease of use feature are the backers that are most likely to dislike all the ease of use features. So they don't want to see an objective name in the journal. They just want to read the text. We don't have quest markers at all, but they also, the same people who want to have a solid, UI background. Our UI that we're showing right now has a transparent background. You can actually turn some of those panels off. So it's more about that ease of use stuff, just being able to consistently turn that all off if you don't want to see it. And then overall, I think it's less about specific features and more about capturing feel. So for example, if someone remembers playing a paladin and something about the paladin, so initially the paladin was almost purely support oriented, and we later added in offensive abilities for them because they did have some decent offensive abilities in the old game, and so it's important for them to feel like they did back then, even if they are not mechanically identical to the way they were back then. But for now, we're going to head out into the wilderness, to one of our wilderness environments, Deerford Crossing. So it takes 4 hours to travel to Deerford Crossing, and because there is a day-night cycle, it's nighttime when we arrive. Uh-oh. Proceed with caution.
Try to go for it.
Try to proceed with caution. So we have a slight bug here with the wizard who's lost his spellbook. Wizards need their spellbook to cast, so we're going to see how this fight goes. This area is overrun with nasty critters, giant insects. We're going to have the fighter out front to help defend against these incoming bad dudes. Fighter has activated his defensive ability, Vigorous Defense. We're going to have everyone focus fire on that little beetle, the wood beetle, because their poison damage can be very, very bad. Paladin's using his Flames of Devotion ability. Priest has her divine or a Holy Radiance ability, which gives a nice immediate region heal to her. Dwarf is in trouble, so we're going to have the Paladin use... Oh, the Priest is there with the heal. Paladin can also use his Lay on Hands. Oh, he successfully knocked over the beetle. Fighters have a knockdown ability they can use. Beetles are actually usually pretty resistant to it, but the dwarf got lucky. Priestess used her Divine Mark ability that targets the beetle, makes them much easier to hit.
fight.
Yeah, actually, why don't you go and check to see if the priest has other equipment that she can equip. No, she lost both of her weapons. Well, the shield helps.
I'm improvising here.
We're improvising. There you go. So the town does light up at night. So that's something we haven't shown before. You can see the light coming from inside the tower as well.
Winfirth.
And we're going to head down to Winfirth's shop. So a local shopkeeper hopefully can sell us some gear. Well, we'll see what he has for sale. Show me what he had for sale.
What can I buy? 1300.
Oh, a lot of expensive. Oh, no. We got some other stuff. We got a crossbow. We got some hatchets and daggers. Battle axe. Quarterstaff. You can give.
Expensive.
Oh, geez. Oh, it's all fine. That's why.
Okay, I'm not buying anything.
All right. We have 4 levels of difficulty, including Path of the Damned, which is extremely challenging. Easy mode is challenging enough, so we're just going to stick with that. We also have our Trial of Iron, which is our Iron Man mode. You have a single continuous rolling save. If you save your game, you exit the game, and if your party gets wiped, then your save game is deleted. So we're going to skip that. And we also have an Expert mode. We're not making games in the late 90s anymore, but some of our backers want an experience that is very close to that. We added a lot of helper features to make the game easier to understand for newer gamers. Some people don't want that, so Expert mode turns off all of the ease of use features. We're also going to skip that. We're going to go with all the ease of use features. All right, so today we're going to be showing some stuff we haven't shown much of. We have more of our races all in now, all their textures and models and everything. We have the Mháire, which are a semi-aquatic race, very large. They're kind of our orc equivalent, not in terms of personality or culture, but they're our big race. We have dwarves and elves, very traditional. A lot of people still love playing the traditional character races, fantasy races. We have Orlans, who are our new small race. They have long ears, cat eyes, kind of semi-feral. And the godlike, who are very, very unusual looking. A lot of people like them because they look very strange. In the setting, though, they're regarded with some fear and suspicion because some people think that they are cursed or blessed by the gods. Very, very unusual looking. So we have the death godlike, the nature godlike, the moon godlike, and the fire godlike. We're going to go with the fire godlike. Several of our backers asked if they could play characters with different parentage for their godlike. So instead of assuming that all godlike are born to human parents, you can say that your godlike were born to a Mháire. So this Mháire godlike is very large. Today we're going to be showing the paladin. Paladin is a great support-oriented class, melee-oriented, close-range support. When you play a paladin, you have to pick a paladin order. The paladin order sort of aligns your character with certain personality types. If you play through the game against the personality types of your paladin order, you suffer small penalties. But if you play in line with the personality type of your order, you get small bonuses. So for example, if you play a character who's from the Darkotsi Paladini, the Darkotsi Paladini order reveres cleverness and passion in all of their interactions with people. So if you play a character that role plays as very passionate and clever, you will get small bonuses. If you play against that, you will get small penalties. We have a standard style 6-stat array, which is very traditional and Dungeons and Dragons-like. We've tried to make sure that the stats are a little more balanced than they often can be in D&D. We don't want to have any dump stats. So for example, in this build, Adam has made a very high constitution character. They're very tough, but his character has a very low resolve. And resolve is what's used to resist interrupts, sort of like the poise stat in Dark Souls. So if your character has a low resolve, they're more likely to play a hit reaction when they get hit. The culture the character is from determines their starting gear. It also gives slight bonuses to the character in terms of their stats. So in this case, we're going to play a character from Old Valia. Old Valia is a swashbuckling culture, so they get a higher intellect. They also get a breastplate, rapier, and a small shield. Background is purely for role-playing purposes. It comes up in conversation every once in a while. We're going to play a dissident, troublemaker. You can customize the appearance of your character by tinting their cloth. You can make something extremely garish or crazy if you want to, or you can be more subdued. So godlike don't have traditional hairstyles. They have head styles because, well, they're godlike and they're crazy looking. You can use the portraits that we provide, or a lot of gamers we know like to put in their own fantasy art, so you can just drop them in the portrait folder and they'll work immediately in the game. And with that, Sassy, the godlike paladin, is ready to go. When players start the backer beta, they start off at first level, but we give them enough experience to advance to 5th level. We want our backers to experiment with various class mechanics and see how the characters advance from level to level. So Adam right away is going to go in and level up his character. At 2nd level, paladins get the lay on hands ability. That's a great support, close range heal ability that they can affect their party members or themselves with. At 3rd level, paladins get a talent. Actually, all characters get a talent. Talents are like feats in Dungeons & Dragons. They can be used to augment or modify the character in a way that is not necessarily strictly aligned with their class. In this case, Adam is going to take the Intense Flames talent. Paladins have a Flame of Devotion ability that makes their weapon burst into holy blue flame, and it does extra damage. The Intense Flames talent makes it more powerful. Paladins at 3rd level also get Inspiring Triumph, which is a passive ability. Every time the paladin downs an enemy in combat, their allies get defensive bonuses for a short period of time. At 4th level, paladins get another support ability, Liberating Exhortation. Liberating Exhortation is very handy for use against characters or use on party members who have been suffering from a negative status effect. If a character is petrified or paralyzed or something really bad is happening to them, they can use Liberating Exhortation to temporarily suspend those hostile status effects. Finally, at 5th level, paladins get Zealous Charge. It's an aura that makes the party move faster during combat. All paladins start with the Zealous Focus aura that Adam is about to activate. Zealous Focus makes all the nearby characters more accurate. You can switch that out with Zealous March at any time, which makes the characters move faster. Over the course of the game, paladins will get a variety of auras that they can use, but they have to switch them out tactically based on the needs of the situation.